Hello lovely people, I'm Catherine and welcome to this week's journal for all seasons. I mentioned last time that I might celebrate the 50,000 subscriber thing today, and I don't exactly, I had some thoughts about how to do it, and in the end I hit on the idea of just playing, because what better way to celebrate than just to play. So there's no real theme this week except for the number 5 because of 50. I didn't choose 50 as a number, or certainly not 50,000. You'll understand why in a minute. So what I've done is I've chosen 5 colours, which are black, cream, neutral, orange, brown and gold, inspired by the jelly print papers I've been using recently. So I've chosen those 5 colours from that, and then I've chosen 5 different media. So I've chosen collage, so I've got a little pile of papers, and my glue stick obviously goes with those. I've chosen colouring pencils in that colour palette. Slight cheat because that's actually charcoal, but it's in the form of a pencil, so hey. And then I've chosen some pens. So I've got a black Posca paint pen, a black gel pen, a gold gel pen, a black micron pen with a finer nib, I think that's 0.5 millimeter, and then a white, because I haven't got cream gel pens, but there's a neutral. And then I've got my watercolour palette, which I did manage to get open, my Cotman watercolours, so I'll just choose the relevant colours from that. So how many is that? So that's collage is 1, pencils 2, pens are 3, watercolours 4, so we need 1 more. Yeah, oh yeah, and my 5th one is kind of wet paint. So I've got a couple of vintage, it's not vintage, it's new, but they called it vintage, craft paints left over from a furniture painting project that I did way back in France. I think they're still good. I only used a tiny bit, so I've saved them. And then I've got my grungy gesso as for my cream, because it's the gesso with a bit of coffee, instant coffee granules in. And I've got my black gesso. So that's my 5 different mediums, 5 colours. I've got this 1 page in my journal, and I've masked it off with washi tape. So I've just got this rectangle area, and I'm just going to play, really. Just going to play. I'm going to check I haven't moved it out of frame. I line it up carefully and then I go and move it. So one of the things you can do if this kind of thing is new to you and you find this a bit intimidating, is do what they call breaking the page. So you just pick a tool, doesn't matter which, and you do that. And you can do any kind of marks you want. Find another clip for that because it's bouncing and it's annoying. It doesn't matter. Write your name. Do some asemic writing. Anything at all. There you go. Now it's a dirty page and nothing to be worried about anymore. I'm just going to see if I can find another clip. Actually, if I clip it to the cover, that's better. Okay, so now I can, well, I have started. So what am I going to put on first? Maybe a bit of collage paper, I don't know. I'm just going to do and see where I get to. So what I kind of like to do is look for a piece, that's a nice piece because it's got a bit of a tree on it. And it seems to want to go in that top corner. Let's stick that up there. And just kind of go through and pick out something that speaks to me rather than overthinking it. It's a little bit like, whoops, I got this bit of greaseproof covering up last week's because it had that piece of cloth there, that piece of stitching, and I went over the border of the stitching. Yeah, because what was I going to say? It's a bit like the slow stitch ethos really, where I talk about being guided by the materials. I guess it could apply to this. It's that mindful approach. Be careful if you're gluing things down not to glue over your washi tape. I've stayed slightly inside it, otherwise you can see what might happen. So now, oh, I didn't get water. Please excuse me, I'll get some water. What I'm going to do is just drip some water onto the paint colours that I think I want to use. Whoops. So just to get them going really, so we'll have some up here into this end of the palette. Some of that orange, some of that gamboge yellow. Just kind of activates them a bit, and then down here into my blacks. And maybe these darker browns as well. And I think I can get away with calling these darker reds orange if I really want to. So I'll just activate all that. And there we go, so I'll put that, it's going out of shot, but I haven't got room otherwise. Clean the brush. So yeah, I think I want to get some kind of broad sweeps of colour on there. You also need to bear in mind when you're working like this for drying time, and you also need to remember to put the lid on your glue. So for me, obviously I'm filming, so I might have to keep stopping to let it dry. Let's just slap some paint on and stop worrying about it. I think I feel like putting some of this vintage, so-called vintage paint and giving it a good shake. Oops, put some out onto this quite dirty plate that I use as a palette. I'm going to get an older brush, because those are my new brushes that I treated myself to recently, and I'm not sure what's in this vintage paint, so I'm trying to save those for my watercolour. So I'm just brushing away from the washi tape so that it doesn't go under the edge any more than is necessary. And I'm just daubing it on. And the thing is, there's no mistakes with this, because if you don't like something, you can just stick something over it or paint over it or whatever. This is literally just playing, and it's kind of cool the way my marks from before are poking through underneath. So that's some of that. Let's do some of the orange while we're about it. So I hope you'll play along and have fun. You need a tiny bit. I'm not even bothering to clean my brush. And you might think it looks like a hot mess, but you just keep going until you're happy with it, or you don't worry about how it looks and you just view it as an exercise. And I do things like use up the paint, so it's not saying I want to paint a certain amount of orange. I'm just going to use it up and wear it out. Remember that song? What was it called? Shake Your Body Down. There we go. Blobby blobby. Now I will clean the brush, otherwise it might go manky. So what next, what next? I would tend to do the wet mediums first and then let it dry and then go in with the pens, but you can of course see what happens if you use your pens into wet medium. I'd be careful because I don't want to ruin them. And then also bear in mind that some are archival, so they won't reactivate if you put wet over the top, like the Posca, which is acrylic. The Micron pen's archival. I think that's archival as well, I can't remember off the top of my head. But you know, other pens might not be. Sharpies are archival. If you're not sure, just test a bit on a scrap of paper and then put a wet, you know, a bit of paint on it or just water on it and see if it moves. My Stabilos are actually watercolour pencils, so I can deliberately activate them if I want to. And then you put your hand in the wet paint, of course. So I could darken some of this bit of collage lower down with this black. Let's see what happens if we put a bit of water on that. Let's just kind of give it a shadow to the whole background. Obviously it needs to dry as well. So you can do that. Just have fun. Just have fun. Let's have a bit more collage. I like this with the little circles on. When things have already got corners, you're always inclined to put them in the corners. Quite like that shape that makes there, so let's stick that up there. It's all about the layers. So I'm actually filming this on Thursday because I tell a lie, it's Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday because I got my retreat coming up at the weekend. I will have had my retreat by the time you see this, and I am coming back on Sunday night. I'm coming home on Sunday night, but I just thought I'd rather do this in advance than have something happen that delays me, or maybe I'll be super tired, or excuse me, I don't know. And I didn't want to end up with not you know, not being able to get a video up for you, so I'd rather do it in advance and make sure it's up. Now I've got this little area here. I think what I do fancy doing is putting a bit of gold paint in there. So I'm just gonna get this lid off. There we go. I think I was making more of a meal of it than was completely necessary. And this gold paint as well, you need to work at it a bit. Thank you, Amy, for my gold paint. I just love it. So I put water on, let it soak in for a bit. It doesn't waste because obviously it just dries again. And then, is that dry enough to put my hand on? Let's just look at it. And now because I'm away from the edge with my collage paper there, I need to have a straight line because otherwise, well, I don't mind that I'm going on to the collage papers. The other thing I like about this is because you've got the different thicknesses of the medium. Obviously the paints and pens are barely any thickness whatsoever, and then the collage depends on the thickness of the paper, but that's another textural element to it as well. Yes, I'm liking that. I'll stop there. Who doesn't like a bit of gold? I'm sure that won't be the last time we're using the gold on here. So I'll put the lid over there. Try and remember to keep washing my brush. And now. See how that's drying? That's just given a bit of shadow there to that. Alright, let's have some watercolour. I'm going to get the big brush, the big mop brush, so that I'm really loose with it. Let's have, I quite fancied something dark down here to kind of balance this dark up here. So I'm going to go into the, let me try and tell you what colours they are. This is burnt umber. Get a bit more pigmenty pigment on there. That's nice. And then I think I'll go really black into this corner. And I'm a messy pup with my paints. This is ivory black. Excuse me. And I'm mixing it into the burnt umber on my palette. On my, not my palette, on my, you know, on the pan. But obviously if you want to do it on a palette, then you do you with your own paints. I'm doing me with mine. There we go. I think I'll also put some of that just around the edge of here. It's a long time since I've done this, just played with the different media. Sorry if my head keeps coming in, but you know, it happens. Right, clean the brush. I think I need a bit more collage. Don't leave my good brush sitting in the water. I'll put it on the, I have this little rag here. I've got this little bit of old sheet that's not nice to stitch, so I use it as a clean up rag. So I just got my brushes wet and let them lay on there. Let's have a bit more collage. So yeah, just go through and see if one speaks to me particularly. This is quite nice. These are just papers that I've made when I've been in my friend's studio, because she's got all the toys. Now I know I'm covering up that bit of painting that I did, but I don't mind, because actually this paper is translucent, so it's still there. You can see it's darker behind here where the paint is and lighter up there, and you can see a bit of the mark making through. So don't get precious about covering things up. That's why I say it's truly about the process. So I've got some glue on here. The only thing that I find slightly, I don't know, that I have to pay attention to is putting the lids on things and cleaning things, and you know, just to look after my materials. Like, you glue one piece on and then you go and paint for half an hour, and by the time you come back the top of your glue's all dry, you know, things like that. Or you leave your watercolour brush just laying with paint on and then it gets all, it's just things like that because you've got so much going on at once. There we go. And so I don't know if that's showing up, but I can just see the paint marks coming through there. I'm really liking that, really liking that. And I'm liking this shape it's making with that gold there, you know, there's a curve, so I might do something later to connect those curves together. The other thing I'm noticing is it is quite vertical this way. I've got this one bludge of paint coming that way, but mostly it's going this way, so maybe I want something now coming across. And what I'm thinking is maybe, baby, a bit of this that kind of echoes this but going this way. So I think I'll just tear a lump of that and I'll just put it somewhere there. Again with the glue. Be careful because it's tissue paper. Whoops. Yes, I should have put something else under there first. It's just where I've cut that window out, it's just a bit awkward. And I'm going to be careful not to stick this over my washi tape. So I'm going to put it on somewhere there. A lump in it, but never mind, we'll call it texture. And then I'm going to fold it back against the washi tape. Oops, come on. Because you don't want anything to interfere with that final moment when you rip off the washi tape. Now I'm going to cut it off along that crease, hopefully. Good enough, good enough. Stick that on there, I might come in later. Okay. I still feel I need something darker down here. I did it with there. That might be on. That might be later on with some black pens, but maybe I'll just do a bit of black watercolor. I've got this square brush. So let me just go into just the black, and this is an ivory, I like the ivory black, but quite dry. And let's just see if we can make some marks like this rather than actually painting. Tiny bit more water. So, you know, you can think about using your tools in more unusual ways as well, rather than, you know, out what they were designed for. Let's make some going the other way. That's kind of cool. Kind of cool. Don't know why I said it in that funny way, but I liked it, so I said it again. Lid on the glue. It's all going on. Yeah, I really like that. So this kind of, the dark squares against the orangey pinky background now echoes this dark tree against the sunset sky. Although the shapes are different, they kind of play off each other, I think. Right, now as usual I've worked around the edge and left the middle. That's just how I roll. I'm just observing that. think I fancy something quite long going, not linking that, but maybe up here somewhere. Something like this piece. Like these little bits. I don't, excuse me, me. I definitely want those in. So I'm going to tear that along first. Oops. Probably just to there. And I don't like hard edges like this in general, but so I can either tear that raggedy now, or I can think, well, I'm going to stick something over it or paint something over it. I think I'll tear it raggedy now. Just because I felt like it. There's no right or wrong, it varies. Now I'll see where I want it. So I put it up there. Kind of looks like the tree is growing out from behind it, which I sort of like. I mean, I'm not creating a landscape, but I don't mind if there's little elements that look like landscape in among the abstract, if that makes sense. So let's get that bit glued on. Somewhere up there, on that, was it there? Slightly higher. There we go. So yeah, I mean, obviously you don't have to take 5 of things. If you have other ideas, you might just want to do 3, or you might want to do more. I'm not sure now about this, but I'll see about that later. Oh, I do know what I might want to include in this later. Let me get them while I think of it. Still got these little book page circles. Now they count as collage, as far as I'm concerned. So I might want one of those or some of those later. Right, so what else? Put the lid back on the glue. I really feel like getting the black gesso out, but the trouble is that'll take a long time to dry. Let's do some white gesso first, or off-white gesso, with the Kofi in. Again, I've got my, I've left my new mop brush in the water, and that is not good to leave your brushes in the water. Naughty girl Catherine. Well, this old brush I'm not so bothered about, but I do want to get it a bit drier because I don't want my gesso to be super runny. So I think I might go a bit down here with it, just to and again I'm just flicking rather than kind of proper painting. I just wanted to blurge the edge of that a bit. Now what I'm liking is it's reactivating some of this paint down here and dragging it in to the gesso up here, and I like that. I'm just going to wet my brush a bit, not too much, and just blur that edge a bit. It's a bit wet but it'll dry. And that line there, I might just drag it a little bit into there. The other thing you can do as well is if it's too much, oh sorry for the clang, it's just with a bit of kitchen roll or whatever, I'm using my little rag, just lift some of it back off with your rag, or also you can soften the edges. I did quite a hard line there, and again it's picked up some of the other colour, but that's not a mistake. That's, you could even then say, oh look, I've got colour on there, I'm going to use that, and stamp with the colour, you know, just with your finger and a rag, or with your actual finger if you want to. Like that. I like that better now, I think. Right, and don't be afraid if you feel stuck to just stop for a minute and have a little look. You know, you don't have to push yourself to keep working if you're stuck. Stuck time is just pondering time or thinking time, or you know, go and get a drink or whatever and then come back to it. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit of gesso down here. Just felt like it. Just over that edge. of that paper where it had that kind of pinked edge, which I'm not mad keen on. That's just my opinion. I'd rather have a torn edge or a straight edge, not even jaggedies. So there we go. So that's good. I'm happy with that. It's coming on. And once you've got something down, you've got things to respond to. So that's why the breaking the page thing helps, that fear of the blank page. But that didn't really give me anything to respond to. But then I put this on, and then this on, didn't I? And then the gap appeared, which led me to do that. And then, so sometimes I pick up a piece of material, a piece of the materials, or a colour or whatever, and that inspires what I do. Like my square paintbrush inspired me to do the square things. And other times I'll respond to something that's appeared in the collage, not the collage, in the piece, you know. I'm feeling like some of this gold paper as well. I think it's probably because I've got 2 bits of gold and I need a third to balance it. I think I might put it up here somewhere. I quite like it there where it's got dark on one side, or maybe there. Let's do it there. And again, I'm tearing away from the piece I want to keep so I don't get the torn edge. Sometimes the torn edge is nice, you know, when the white of the paper shows, but sometimes you don't want it. So I can audition. A bit lower, I think, if it's going there, that whole big bit. And again, I'm covering up what I did, but I'm not worried at all. There's although I don't want to cover up all that orange, what I can do is just take that a little bit further more off. I do find it quite hard to speak coherently whilst doing this. Stitching I can do automatically, and I've got way more experience of stitching. Yeah, I think we'll put that there. Gluing I should be able to do and talk at the same time. Oh dear. Whoopsie. So I need to get it back where I thought it should go. Up slightly. And that seems to be sticking okay to the wet paint. I'm just again making sure that I'm not on the washi tape. There we go. So now I seem to have this landscape thing building up, and I'm going to go with it. You know, that's fine by me. Does not worry me in the slightest. And I am even maybe thinking that one of my book pages could go up here at one point and represent the sun or the moon or whatever. But I won't do that yet because I need more going on in behind first, I think. In fact, now I'm seeing a shape here emerging. So I've got this dark piece and then this open space which has only got the paint and the pen. But I'm just thinking if I darken this in some way, it'll continue that line. So I could do that again with my paint. Let's just get some, let's not have it super dark, let's have some sepia. Let's put some sepia down and see how dark. This is a watercolour paint. See how dark that is. That's quite dark. I'm just dabbing. And I'm just going onto the edges of my collage papers because it just is softening the edge. Right, and then I do think that is a bit much. So while it's still wet, I can just lift a little bit back off and just blur that edge a bit. Soften that all up. That's better. There we go. So what now? Yes, I do think I want to get the black gesso involved at this point. Put the lid on my glue. there's a prize for how many times I tell myself to put the lid on my glue. The correct answer in the comments. That's not the right lid. Because I've got here as well, just have to make a bit of space. I've got some, I'm going to put these pens and pencils just to one side for now, I'll put them up there in fact. I've got some little mark making tools, which is a bit of bubble wrap that came out of some packaging. I've got the lid off a milk carton, which is round obviously. I've got this tiny little cork that comes out of the tulip needles, the embroidery needles that I use. They all will make circles of a kind. So I think I'm going to put a little bit of black gesso out onto my palette. You could also use ink, but ink isn't one of my 5 mediums, so the 5 media. So I'm not using ink. Right, so let's see what these do. Let's start with this. Can you even see? Let's turn that round a bit. I think you can see now. So try and keep my fingers up away. Say you could use, anything, cotton reels or corks, anything. You don't need to go and buy fancy things. Just look around your house. So just make sure I've got gesso all over everything, and then I can stamp. Whoops, that's good. I like that. Let's try with let's wipe my finger. Let's try with the bubble wrap. Just cut a little corner off because I don't want that great big piece. These are the blunties. And then you can either get your brush and paint some gesso on, or you can dip it in it. I'm going to dip it in it. Obviously you can also use ink or any wet paint. I expect you know this. And then, where should we put it? Maybe we'll put it there. Try and keep it straight and not wiggle it from side to side. Same when you lift it off. That's cool. And then I'm going to turn it, I think because it's slightly rectangular, I'm going to turn it through 90 degrees and just use the same, not put any more paint on it. Just down there. So that'll be a little bit paler. That's nice. And then maybe I'll just put some here, which will probably get covered up at one point, and maybe not. And just to clean the bit of bubble wrap off. It's all adding layers. There we go. And then finally let's use that little bit of cork, which is tiny. With cork I find that they get better the more you use them, because they kind of need to get charged up. This is proper cork. Where should we go? And I don't mind that they're imperfect. In fact, I like it. I'll just go over that one again. Let's do 5 because that's our theme. There we are. It's coming on, isn't it? I kind of am thinking a little bit about the light and the dark. So I wouldn't want to, I think I might keep this area more light. So maybe I need a bit more collage in there. I've got something light and bright. What have I got in here? Got that bit. I've got that, which has got the white background. And those are all darker. Yeah. Oh, I've got this piece. So it's just a little scrap of handmade paper. Maybe we will need some of that. Maybe we'll just tear some of that funny shape. That's a technical term, funny shape. Just not liking the straight lines unless they're on the edge. But you know, that's a look, that's another look if you want a more geometrical thing. Actually it's more textured that way up as well. I think I might just put that there like that, because that's kind of leading the eye up to the gold thing. Glue on it. Put it there. Where's the lid on my glue? Right. Okie dokie. Maybe some more paint now, I think. So let's do some yellowish paint in here. So I'm going into the gamboge yellow, which is kind of a golden yellow, and you can tell by how how well used it is that I like it. Sorry, I'm a bit space restricted here, as I'm sure you know. Well, let's just drag some lines across like this. And also observe how it behaves differently on the different surfaces that it's crossing. So here on this, I think it's deli paper or something, it was from my friend's place. It's resisted, so it's made these little bubbly beads. And then obviously on the background, which is just a cheap sketchbook paper, the original page, it's worked quite well, soaked in nicely. On the handmade paper it's worked, you know, it's behaved differently, the different places that it's crossed. So I'm just noticing that and letting that happen. And also you can play with how much water you've got on your brush and how thick the paint is. If you have quite a dry brush, you'll get a different effect. And I mixed a bit of, sorry, I should have said I mixed a bit of cad yellow in with that cadmium yellow. That's quite nice. Another thing you can do is non-dominant hand, which just frees you up a bit. Dab about. Right, what haven't I used? Well, apart from my pens and pencils. I think I've used everything, haven't I? I might do a bit more stamping. I might do some more of these big circles before this gesso dries. Now you need to be careful because they're quite they stand out straight away, and obviously we can blur that down if we want to. I'm just gonna, if I put 2 then I'll need 3 of course. No, I don't think I'm going to put any more big circles, I'm leaving it to that 1. Which by complete fluke, haha, I think we'll do that. Who would have known? I didn't even, did I draw? No, I didn't draw around a milk carton lid to make those circles. I can't remember. I think I used my template, my plastic template thing. But that's too good of a coincidence not to go with it. And I like to put the book page on the slant. You know, the text. Be careful because the gesso is still a bit wet. Might have been smarter to wait for it to dry. And oh, and another, put the lid on the glue. Another thing I want to do, I think I'll do this next thing and then I'll let it sit for a bit, is do some splattering. I think I might splatter with the gesso. Does that work if you really water it down, just because it's there? So I've got my handy dandy splatter guard, made out of an old cardboard box. Clear a bit of space. A cardboard box, so the light might change when I put that round because the window's just behind me there. Oops. Make sure the other one's still covered up. The So you need to get plenty of water. This is actually a big brush to be splattering with. I'm just trying it first on the palette. No, I'm going to get a smaller brush that's going to end in tears. That's going to end in tears. And that'll be right now. A bit more. Who doesn't love a good splatter? I'm kind of concentrating on the darker areas and myself. Luckily I've got an old top on that I'm not bothered about. Because it's amazing where it goes. You think you're focusing on where you want it to go, but it's going everywhere else as well. Right, I think we'll call that enough splattering. So I'm going to just leave all that to dry, and I'm going to have a cup of tea and probably have a look if I've been making sense, and see how long we are already. And then once that's all dry, I might come back then, and well, I will come back, but I might then have a go with you know, the pens and things, and we'll just take a view. I'm just cleaning myself up. See you in a bit. Okay, so that's all nice and dry. I'm going to do a bit more gold paint, I think, and then I'm going to start with my pens and pencils. I thought I might try doing some stamping with the gold paint. So I'll get another bit of bubble wrap, just a little bit. And activate my paint again with the brush. Make sure I got clean water as well, which I've now just put a brush in, which had still a bit of darker colour on, but it'll be okay. Just get that going again. Now I don't know if I'll be able to dip the bubble wrap in it, or if I'll have to paint it on. Let's try put it on here. And I don't think I'll get circles because the watercolour will, you know, the bubble wrap's kind of resisting it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's only one way to find out. Put a little bit in here over this dark. Oh yeah, I did get circles. You see them? Let's try dipping it in. Don't want to go mad. Well, there's a temptation with the gold is to put gold all over. Just there, because I can see that it looks a bit square. I mean the area, you know, because the bit of bubble wrap square. I guess I could have cut a raggedy shape of bubble wrap instead of cutting a rectangle. There we go, that'll do pig. Right. So I like the way that's kind of leading your eye up through into this gold, but obviously that's the Gamboge watercolour, and up into this bit of gold coming down here. Yeah, I'm liking that. I've lost the lid for my... Where's it gone? I'll find that afterwards. So I'll clean that brush. There's gold paint on it though. I might just go a little bit further down. You remember I said that that was irritating me a little bit, that the gold didn't go right down to that dark line. I don't know, there's something about that. I'll just fill that in with that. Yes, stop now. Stop, stop, stop. It's knowing when to stop. So, just cleaning my brush. So this area is pretty much only the collage paper, but I quite like that because that's a little bit more quiet. Here there's a lot going on, and we've got this circle drawing our eye, and up here we've got the tree, which is you know, a figurative, definite thing. A little bit of text from the book page. Yeah, I like the way the eyes move through here by these sort of more vertical elements, but then interrupted more by these horizontal elements and curves going up. I'm just saying all this so that maybe then you can, you know, look for that in your own work if you're not used to doing that sort of thing. The other thing is here, where I didn't really put anything apart from the paint and the splatters, and my original marks still showing through where I scribbled on the page, and I really like that. So I want that gold paint to dry, and then I'm going to go and have a little fiddle about with some of my pens and pencils. Just move all that to one side. Oh, there's my lid, found it. Sorry for the clang, just put the lid back on that. It won't come to any harm with the lid off, but Fred will have little gold paw prints everywhere. So I can put the lid on my water, so that's, I think I'm done with the wet media. So now I'm going to, now here's where my head will come in if I'm not careful. Oh, I know another thing I was going to do, just let me give that a second or two to dry. I did think I would put some words on. So I'm going to go into my tin of found text and just see what there is that might fit, might, you know, that might go. So I'll just have a little root in here, just see what jumps out at me. I quite like this because of the colour, unknown. Is there something else that could be unknown? You can sort of make up little sentences or phrases. Talk amongst yourselves while I root. In fact, I might just edit out me rooting. Okay, that took quite a long time. I found this originally, places, unknown places, and I liked the word, but it's blue, and I just didn't feel that it went. So then I found this, worlds, which is black, but it's on a very white background, but I can do something about that. So I'm gonna put the lid back on there. Sorry for the clang. So I'm going to get my ink. And I'm kind of going off my rules now because I said no ink, but this is for the words, so I'm allowed to cheat. Just see if there's any ink left on here. I'm just darkening it a little bit with the whatever ink's left on here. I might actually trim the bottom off it a bit as well because it's a bit big. And I'm going to ink the edge of it. I'm not going to put them on yet because I'm going to do some more colouring in for it. Or I might put them on, I don't know. I'm just going to ink the edges with the Distress ink, which is brown rather than the black. Yeah, I just had to use that because of the colour, and then I had to make a story based on that. So again, it's responding to the materials, isn't it? Right, so I think I'll leave those for a minute until I've done my colouring in bits and bobs. Pens and pencils, so I think I'm going to start with my pencils, and I might just use them to go anywhere where I think I just want to intensify the colour. So here I've got the brown pencil on the brown area, or add a bit of more shade to it. You're just fiddling about basically. You could also use them if you've got any white edges of your paper showing that you're not happy with. You can use the pencil to colour those in. You can obviously just draw with them if you like. Do some mark making. Some hash marks up there maybe. Just adding interest and having fun. Maybe do some of this gold down in here where I've got a lot of the white paper showing still. Maybe the gold works better on the deli paper, it does, so I had that blotching which has dried really nicely actually. I can colour in some of these shapes. Just where I think, maybe not every one, but maybe down here I'll use the gold pencil. That's quite nice, colour those in. These are Stabilo aqua colours, like I said, I got them a few years ago as a Christmas present. And they're really nice and pigmented, even just as colouring pencils, but they are designed as well to be reactivated with water. There are other ones available, this is just what I think the kids got them for me. Quite a nice set. And this to me is, well, it's all been fun, but this is one of my favourite bits, doing these little touches. So I'm going to go ahead like this with the pencils for a little while, until I think I've done enough with the pencils, and then I'll come back and talk about what I might do with the pens, and probably go off and do a bit more of that as well, because it's already quite long, this video, and I'm quite capable of doing this for another hour or so. So yeah, I'll be back in a little moment. No time at all. So I've been colouring in here and there, specific things that I've done. I've got my black colouring pencil. I've gone around part of the circles here, not entirely outlining them, but just around one side to almost put like a shadow effect on them. And then down here with the squares that I did with my paintbrush, I did the same thing, and I used some black and some of the brown just to give them a bit of dimension. I did more colouring in here in the white spaces with different coloured crayons, and I put some brown at the bottom here just because it looked very white even though it had the gesso over it. And now I'm looking at this line here of this dark piece, and I'm just kind of following it and shading it, not super dark, but almost like a shadow of it kind of continues across to the other side. Don't know why my voice keeps going up at the end. Do you see what I mean? So that your eyes led right through, but it's different. You know, it's not the same piece going all the way across that would entirely cut the piece in half. And I think, oh, and I did where I did this, had these hash lines here earlier on. I did some wiggly lines coming off them. It's raining again. Coming down. So I think for the colouring pencils, really, I'm happy with that. So now I've got my pens. The Posca pen, I have to give it a shake. I don't use it very often. Again, oops, sorry, it was a Christmas present some time ago. You have to make sure they're activated, which they are, but I might just do some dots with it, because I've got these bigger circles here, so I think it might be nice to have some smaller dots just coming off them. I'm just doing a sort of little, sorry if my head comes in, wibbly line coming down like that. And then I might do some more sort of down in here, so I'm not going to do a continuous line, but I'm going to sort of see where that line naturally goes, and then just carry on doing a few more down here. Because then when you're looking, it just makes it interesting to look at then, your eyes finding these little connections. Stop with it. And I have to be really careful not to touch those until they're dry or they'll blurge. So let's go with the gold gel pen. I might just do some little sort of lines like this in some of these circles. You'll find if you do enough of this, and probably if you do enough of this, you've already found it, that you get your little things that you do, you know, and these are my little things that I do. And then here and maybe in these we'll do a bit more definite. Again, I'm not going all the way around, I like to leave things kind of half finished. Just find it more interesting to look at. So be careful with those little wet dots. And you could even put like little, you know, like you put on if you paint a balloon, little rectangular marks to indicate 3 dimensions. I mean, it's not going to do on this really, because the light's coming from, we haven't paid any attention to where the light's coming from, but it's just, again, something I like to do. I might do some gold around the edge of this black here. I didn't stick that down very well, but it doesn't matter. Again, just kind of a sketchy line. I like to do a sketchy line rather than getting all precise with this. So if I start doing a perfect line around the edge and I go wobbly, I'll be cross, whereas when it's a sketchy line I won't mind. You can just keep going on forever really. I might just do some very small gold lines, just dashes into this black, just to give it a bit more depth, because it's just a piece of matte black at the moment. Raining again. And again with this you have to let it dry, obviously, and then it will stay. Yes, I like that. It's also picking up on the gold in there. And then my white gel pen, that will really stand out, that to make little highlights. So you have to kind of think carefully about where you might want to put it. I might just put it around the edge of some of the pieces of paper. And actually that is mixing a little bit with that paint, and that's quite nice. But you see, that's quite obvious, so you have to be a bit, don't go mad with it unless you like the look of it being obvious everywhere. So, but I can't just leave one. Also, ones of things tend to stand out more than groups of things, and odd numbers of things are usually more visually pleasing, because if you have 2 of something, your eye makes a pair, so you flick backwards and forwards between the 2 and you don't really look elsewhere. That's one of the reasons of odd numbers. Whereas 3s or 5s or whatever, you're going 1, 2, 3 and it's sort of leading your eye around a bit more. I'm just going to go down the edge of this as well, into the white. Can't draw too fast with this or it stops flowing. I'm really liking the effect of that. I'm hoping that's all dry now, it should be. But I do like these Sakura Jelly Roll pens. They're pretty well behaved and they last pretty well until the inks run out, I find, even writing onto, you know, on things like this with them. Alright, and then maybe just some very small black marks with my Micron pen. So maybe I'll do some little dots again. So I'm carrying on with the circles theme, but just getting smaller and smaller every time. It's just what I like to do. And I might carry those right up into here a little bit as well. I like to do, let's do it down here in the dark area, a dashed line, because I always think it looks like stitching. But all this has developed over time, you know. When I first started doing this kind of thing, I felt very restricted and unsure. But the more you do it, the more you just give yourself permission to play, the more free you become and you find your marks, you find your own voice. I'm going to put a few more just going down this way here. In the other direction. There we go. And I think that will do, pig. I need to stick my words on. I need to decide where I want them. Now of course you'll get super precious about covering things up. that you like. But you can also use it as an opportunity to cover up things that you're not so keen on. See, I feel I want them at the bottom, but I love this area here, and I don't really want to cover it all up too much. Maybe like that. But this, it looks so nice against that. Aww. And I don't want unknown there and worlds over there, because it, you know, we read from left to right in English. And right, I decided it had to go down there. That was where it looked the best. So I just pulled my big girl pants on, like you say, excuse me, over the pond, excuse me, and just stuck it on there. So now I was about to do this without the camera running. We are running, yes. I'll get the washi tape off. And which usually goes okay and doesn't rip the paper, but I'm always a bit careful and do it like this. If you use masking tape, by the way, a good idea is to blast it with a hairdryer before you peel it off. I just love that clean edge. I'm going to stick that on my desk, and in a minute I'm going to wrap it back around something so I can reuse it again. Go up the other side. I won't edit this because I know many of you like to see this. I know I do when I see other people doing it. I was a bit sad if they edit out and just show the finished thing. So I'm giving you the full process of getting the washi tape off. Which I just love this clean edge look sometimes. Sometimes you just want that. It just frames it, and yeah. Oh, what's happening? Something's tearing there. It's okay. There we go. That corner was already like that. Bit messy. So let's get that piece of ugly paper away as well. So there we go. So that is this week's journal entry, just playing. And I love the way it kind of tones with this. And also I've just realised, and that was purely by chance because I literally picked that word out because it was the Gamboge yellow colour. Unknown Worlds also relates to this theme that we did last week with the fungal networks under the forest floor. That's hard to say. So I'm really, yeah, that's a happy accident or a subconscious decision. Who knows these things? So I hope you'll have fun yourself. I really enjoyed doing that. I'm really happy with the result. I feel like going and doing another one straight away, but I better go and have some lunch and have a look at your messages and your comments and check into the Facebook group. So meanwhile, happy playing. I will do you a little handheld scan at the end just so you can see all the layers and the textures, so stick around for that. And meanwhile, lots and lots of love and kisses, and thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.